So in the first section of the lesson that we've just dealt with, we've talked about why we don't need to worry about position, okay? To clarify, there wasn't a position in the golf swing until somebody photographed a movement. Movements create positions. Positions themselves are very poor at creating movements, and yet sadly that's how much of golf is taught. Okay, so it's not about position, it's about movement. If we accept that as a concept, let's talk in detail why. Well, we know that unlike tennis and football and other sports, this is a static ball, okay? But once we've actually prepared, everything about us is movement orientated. Even our pre-shot routine is a series of little movements. The backswing is a huge movement of the shoulder coil to the throat. That's where you create your power, and your downswing is a release of the hand action that actually creates the shot. And with all that going on, your torso, hips, legs and feet are also very lively, and they're moving quite dramatically, and yet you can't think about them in the 1.8 seconds it takes to swing a golf club. Okay, so I'm going to hit the 6-iron for you. Off the club, left hand, right hand, shoulder line, hips out and plant the feet. I'm going to have one waggle. I'm going to coil and go. I'm just enjoying the moment because that was perfect. Okay, so let's have a look at the movements in the golf swing. I just did that with my 6-iron. I'm going to break it down to 3. The shoulders moved through 90 degrees. The forearms moved through 90 degrees and the wrists cocked to 90 degrees. So there we have 3 movements. There's a wrist cock, there's one movement. There's a forearm rotation, which is the secondary movement. And then there's the shoulder turn, which is the main movement. And if we look at the golf swing as a pie chart, half of it is body, quarter is forearms, and quarter is wrists. Now, I think the good Lord knew all about golf when he made us, because the 3 hinges he's given, the 3 hinges of movement are all to 90 degrees. Why do you have a hinge on a door? You have a hinge to permit movement. And if the hinge is correctly set in the door frame and the door itself, the movement, the plane of the movement is determined, as is the length. Very small details or defects in the setting of the hinge plates create bigger error in the edge of the door. Okay, your hinge plates have to be good. So, if I turn sideways to you, let's look at the way the wrist actually moves. If the club were up my sleeve, I would be finding 90 degrees of wrist hinge. But with the golf club, particularly the 6-iron, we start off with about 45 degrees of wrist cock. So the wrist hinge to 90 degrees, that is wrist movement. If you want to understand wrist hinge, just do what I'm doing there. Take hold of the club, parallel left thumb right to centre, and just practice cocking to 90 degrees. Okay? Now, if you let the thumb go an inch longer than it should, guess what? You will hinge to 135. Lots of lady golfers overswing because the thumb is long. Now, we're not made like that. We're not made with the thumb sticking out of the forearm. That would be a big fib. Great if you're playing golf out of a bush. The fact of the matter is the club's on the floor and the neutral structure of the hand agrees with the shaft. Now when I hinge the wrist or cock the wrist, I get 90 degrees. It's very simple. The other lovely thing about the thumb bone, if the thumb bone is parallel, I hinge in plane. If my thumb is diagonal strong, I will hinge across the plane. If I'm a salad dodger and my thumb is across the shaft, I will hinge over the plane and get the club laid off. The beauty about left thumb is the wrist movement works off the left thumb. The wrist cock is to 90, but also in plane. So let's look at the movement, not the position, the movement of the forearms. If you put your forearms out in front of you, you'll find that your forearms can flare out by 90 degrees and roll in by 135 degrees. Okay? Probably more than that actually, 270 degrees. It's a lot, yes, 270. Okay? If I put my forearms or my upper arms against my rib cage, my forearms now go 90 to my right, 180 to my left. If I put my hands together, my palms and my forearms rotate 90 to my right, 180 to my left. So, when I'm making a golf swing, the forearm rotation moves thus. The forearms move through 90 degrees going back. they move through 180 coming through. Then you're left with the last movement, the biggest of the three, the shoulder coil. So the shoulder coil is 90 degrees to my right. That's a rotational movement, not a position. And then I rotate all the way through in the follow through 180 degrees. If I lean forward, you can see it engulfing plane. I turn my shoulders, a movement of 90 degrees. And when I release the club, the shoulders return through 180. So there we are, we're looking at movements. Because the setup is rather static, we need a practice waggle or something to kickstart us. We need to go from this address routine into a movement. Now, it's not going to be the wrists that move first, because that would vote for upright. Nor is it going to be the forearms that go first, because that will vote for flat. The father of the swing plane is the left shoulder. The left shoulder movement ignites the club. It's the widest arc, it's in the correct path and correct plane. And if you load fully with the shoulder, if your grip and alignment of the forearms are good, then the blade's going to behave perfectly. So, what's the backswing movement? It's a 9-inch journey from the shoulder to my throat. Load the shoulder. Okay? Now the beauty is, if your grip and posture are good, the wrist hinge and the forearms occur almost for free. Stand over the ball, clear your mind, one waggle, turn the shoulder, guess what? Forearms and wrists have worked. Can't make it much simpler than that. Prepare, load the shoulder movement. Now hit the shot. If the swing's 1.8 seconds, the downswing's probably 0.7. I can't think about a lot. I just hit the shot with my hand action. So I prepare at address, my shoulder movement initiates the backswing, and my hand action controls and channels the power in the downswing. The setup is preparatory, the backswing is a creation of power, and the downswing is a creation of the shot.